This is Bogie. Do you like horror? You might want to watch this.
I love you, baby.
Welcome back. Sam Raimi and Robert Tapert started a production company called Ghost House Productions back in 2002 with their focus on horror movies. Some good, some not so good. Well, one of the good ones, Sam Raimi himself actually returned to his horror roots to direct Drag Me to Hell. Yeah, it's one of my favorites from the studio. Yes, that one. Ghost House also brought us the Don't Breathe movies. I haven't seen the sequel yet, but the first one was very good, and if you're familiar at all with Sam Raimi, then you know that I'm going to be focused on the Evil Dead series. Sam Raimi, of course, directed the original trilogy while Tapert produced. But I'm not here to talk about one of horror's greatest franchises with Ashley Williams. Instead, I'm going to focus on 2013's Evil Dead, directed by Fede Álvarez. And this is produced by Bruce Campbell, who starred as Ashley Williams himself. Yes, the 2013 Evil Dead, not directed by Sam Raimi. I know. If you've already seen this version, you probably either fell in love with it or you hated it. And if you lean toward the hate side, like Bathory, you might think criticisms like, Mia's demonic voice doesn't fit Jane Levy's character and sounds cheesy.
Don't do it, you little bitch. Don't cut it off.
Well, that's honesty. When this first came out, I was on the post about it myself. It delivered horror, there's no doubt about that. There's plenty of gore, and I'm not a gore hound. There's no question, but did it deliver Sam Raimi's Evil Dead? That's the question the fans wanted to know. How do you perceive this movie as an Evil Dead fan? I mean, a fan of the original trilogy with Ash and his comedic wit. Granted, the first movie was meant to be a straight-up horror film, but it has so much craft and love put into it, it makes it difficult to accept it solely as a horror film, at least for me. Instead, liking it more akin to Jason and the Argonauts with the stop motion, all the practical effects, but of course, this was done on pretty much no budget, so I'm biased. Wait, now you're covering movies, Bogie? I thought this was a gaming channel. You may be thinking that right now, and you would be right. Whole and large, this is a gaming channel. But for the love of the genre and for the love of things that embellish what this channel is, I love horror. So here are my thoughts on Evil Dead 2013.
Groovy.
Wait, hold on. Not The Evil Dead from 1981 or Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness or maybe even the FX series, Ash vs. Evil Dead.
But at some point, you'll have to talk to your kids about drugs.
I promise not to touch this shit ever again.
Oh, what about the handful of games that are directly based on Sam Raimi's character, Ashley Williams? Yes, there's a new Evil Dead movie coming out this year too in 2022, directed by Lee Cronin, who also directed A Hole in the Ground, also not starring Bruce Campbell as Ash. But I just want to go back and focus on 2013. My thoughts, my opinions, that's all.
So let me get this straight. You would first rather discuss Fede Álvarez's Evil Dead, which by the way never even got a sequel?
Yes, that's right. And this has nothing to do with making direct comparisons, although there are quite obvious ones, but I see Fede's vision much different. The violence is darker, it's more graphic, and the atmosphere is heavy, unlike the rest of the franchise, in my opinion.
Mia OD'd? She didn't just OD. Legally, your sister died. They had to defibrillate her.
By the official short description of this movie alone, it sounds by the numbers. Young adults go out to a cabin in the middle of the woods alone where they are faced with unspeakable horror. This is as vague as it gets and also very generic and tropey. Where if I were not already familiar with the franchise, I might have never seen this upon release. Fans of the series hadn't seen Bruce Campbell back on celluloid in his iconic role since Army of Darkness in 1992. With only a few poorly received Evil Dead video games up until 2013, I and other fans were ravenous for a new film. I was so excited to see the dark humor return, the frenetic filmmaking, stop-motion awesomeness, creative gore effects, and the whole absurdity of it all. I was disappointed that Bruce Campbell's not returning to reprise the role, but hey, it had been forever ago, and the teasers and trailers looked very promising with the new director and lead star, Jane Levy, being on the bill.
You're all going to die tonight.
I read a passage from that book.
So I go to the theater with some friends who also like Evil Dead, and I'm immediately met with a cast straight out of CW. What? It's not funny, it's not terribly creative or inventive, it's dark and mean. And the curtains close. I remember leaving the theater disappointed. I shamefully expected a dark comedy, and I wanted another Evil Dead 2. But instead I got a serious, dark, gory, and violent movie that borderlined a demonic snuff film than an actual Evil Dead movie. That's what I thought then. I decided it wasn't for me and happily returned to the trilogy when I was in the mood for a good comedic horror fest.
Lady, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store.
Who the hell are you?
Name's Ash.
And that's where this point lies.
Housewares.
I couldn't stop thinking about the movie. After it left theaters and the DVD was yet to be released, I found myself hyped to watch it all over again. I mean, I had just given it negative reviews to those I saw it with. I had a difficult time adjusting to the new cast for one.
You just cut her fucking arm off.
Eric
Does that set fire?
especially seemed out of place, being obnoxious and unintentionally funny. And perhaps worse, there was just no Ash replacement. There was no charismatic, funny ass kicker to take names and chew bubblegum.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
There was no charismatic, funny ass kicker to take names and say groovy. Jane Levy's character was serviceable, but did not become the female surrogate for Ash, as I'd hoped from the trailers. She has no humor whatsoever, which is what made Evil Dead work so much for me because of Bruce's portrayal of Ash.
Come get some.
Jane's character, when she does pick up the mantle, she's actually not protecting anyone. She's just protecting herself. It would have been better to see her protect her brother. That would have given her character so much more depth. Overall, it lacked necessary levity to be consistent in tone at that time.
I don't think so. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine?
Jane Levy, whatever, couldn't bring the levity, if you know what I mean. I know, bad jokes aside. And it's honestly a bummer because I think the movie burnt the actress out of ever wanting to reprise that role again.
You just missed my temper tantrum. Thank God.
I got the impression she was over before the movie even wrapped. I bring this up because she actually is pretty good in her role who embodies addiction, abandonment, loss, and trauma. In fact, this is the first time the series has taken its lead and made the character a real-to-life person. Not a comedic narcissist like Ashley.
Swallow this.
You should have left when Mia wanted to.
Baby, please. Everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. I don't know if you'd noticed this, but nothing has been fine.
These are characters written with real-life issues, coping with grief. In fact, that's what propels this story, at least in the beginning.
Mia! Put the fucking gun down!
At times, it's easier to accept a horror movie that takes itself less serious because it's more acceptable to laugh at its absurdities than to acknowledge the distinction of darkness. This movie does lack that levity, but it's okay because it's aware of it. It's absurd in its own artistic way, even being comedic. I'm not being sarcastic. I actually think this is a dark comedy, a very, very dark comedy. It's cynical and mean at times, but it has heart. It also embraces beauty where the setting is on clear display, and it is gorgeous if you can find beauty in dark things. Here's the basic premise. Young adults arrive at a remote getaway cabin in support of a friend and family member. Mia is running the clock of drug addiction, leaving her friends and her brother, David, determined to get her clean. The story is straightforward. It's simple, but relatable. These characters aren't here to party and be another number for a killer.
That is basically what really started in the beginning. It's like these 5 guys going to the cabin to help this girl go cold turkey.
They have purpose, motivation, and we can clearly see that. It's strong, but it doesn't go anywhere beyond that, unfortunately. But if you dig a little deeper and have the patience for it, then the story becomes an allegory for trauma, addiction, loss, and so on. But the story goes into pure straight movie horror as demonic forces are awakened from the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead. It feels cheap because it doesn't resolve the characters in the end. I won't claim the direction and writer purposely turned this into an allegorical dark fairy tale once the bloodletting begins, and I would say it's safe to assume it's content resting on basic premise laurels.
We're all gonna be dead by then!
But I go back because I get more from it. I see the allegory, and I enjoy the atmosphere. It's not my favorite to view in one session though. I'm not a gorehound again. It just doesn't do anything for me.
The gore the merrier was our tagline that we always loved joking with. And with a horror movie, you know, why not?
Anyway, so this story starts strong but quickly throws development away once the horror begins. And that's my ultimate gripe. The characters have been cheapened and exploited for the expectation of gore. Sure, it's harder for me to appreciate that, and I fully acknowledge that Evil Dead is a series that loves its gore. I preface this with a strong but.
And this is a big, hairy but.
The originals were done with humor. I know the first Evil Dead 1981 was meant to be tonally serious and scary, but I've already given my reasons for that. So why does this movie stay with me through the years and one I've been returning to on an almost annual basis? Even movies I love, I don't rewatch as often. What is going on here with the parts that make up my psyche?
That sound, boy.
Eric, practically the audience, breaking the fourth wall, stating what we may be thinking to ourselves as outside spectators. He just doesn't really fit in place, but unintentionally brings any actual levity that this movie really needs to work, for me at least. Unlike Ash, who's funny and uses his charisma to keep you feel at ease, Eric is annoying and you don't get a sense of safety with him. He's this high school teacher, but he comes off more like an obnoxious douchebag. The character is also so poorly mismanaged. He goes from being a prude practicalist to taking the Necronomicon seriously.
Like, did I make all this happen? Because I'm not hallucinating. She just shot her brother.
Quickly believing a book that looks like it was obsessively created by a wannabe edgy university art student. It's a cool final exam project, but Eric takes it seriously. More so than anyone else at first. I honestly think this would have been better handled by David's girlfriend, Natalie.
Oh, the heartbreaker from your car shop.
Who literally does nothing in the movie besides become a Deadite. Even when she has conjecture, David immediately dismisses her.
We should have left when Mia wanted to.
Baby, please.
Everything's gonna be fine.
If the writers had foresight to give her story arc some real character, they could have had her be obsessed with the book because she was into historical studies, we'll say, with a strong religious background. Well, that's even semi-interesting. In fact, speaking of characters' motivations, it's all solely based around Mia, about being her friend and wanting to help save her. But here's the thing, Mia is such a rude, unlikable, and negative character in the beginning, it's hard to wonder what her friends see in her. I'm sure they probably had a wonderful past before addiction started, but we don't really get that sense. But it hardly relates to the audience that Mia is somebody that these characters are really there for. We just have to accept it because the movie tells us to. I should restate, the premise of the story starts off strong, but the execution is haphazardly executed. So by the end, you're probably only going to have connection with the two leads, which is David, played by Shiloh Fernandez, and Mia, Jane Levy. I still think they actually are written to be subsurface characters, but I do see interesting facets of them that make them compelling in the roles. And by proxy, I think they deliver a semi-believable character. It seems the only character with rose-colored glasses is David himself, who may or may not be in denial. But I do sense he has dealt with his family and has decided that normal life for him is to cut past ties. Mia's friends see that in David, but their perspective is much more aligned with Mia's. David's selfish, he's running, he's hiding. It's funny that the friends don't really acknowledge David as an adult with very healthy needs to disassociate from his family's personal life because they've become too toxic to deal with, namely Mia and her addiction.
I'll swallow your soul!
To sum up Evil Dead, it delivers completely on horror, first and foremost. Second is fan service. Do I like 1981's Evil Dead more than 2013? I used to say yes, but I'm on the couch about it now. I actually go back and rewatch 2013's Evil Dead way more than I do the original. I don't know if that means it's better or not. They're very different, so it's hard to compare. Either way, I like them both.
As a horror film, I prefer Fede's movie for sure.
Anyways, back to video games.
Groovy.
Bogie out.
This is a Fede movie. Well, like, he did it. He did it.